Hey everybody, Alex Kazora, SteelersDepot.com, back with some more Pittsburgh Steelers training camp analysis and notes from the first 4 days at Latrobe at St. Vincent College. Pittsburgh will put on the pads on Tuesday. First 4 practices were the NFL's mandated ramp-up period. No contact, no pads, still an OTA type feel, but with the off day Monday, I figured I would check in and give my thoughts on the good, the bad, the ugly of training camp so far. So let's talk about it. Before we start, if you guys could like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the site SteelersDepot.com. Would really appreciate that. Again, we're 4 days in, a lot to learn. The pads come on, the evaluations really begin, especially for offensive line, defensive line, run game in general. So these are just some thoughts. I'll try to put some photos on screen. No video, not allowed to take video during training camp. Obviously, no preseason action yet, but some photos on screen from our great site photographer, Tim Rice. So, quarterback, of course, the big news here, Russell Wilson not practicing the first 4 days due to a calf injury suffered pushing a sled during the conditioning test. Would not advise the quarterbacks to push sleds in the future, that's for sure, but he's okay. I know there's been some concern and a little bit of panic from fans. Oh, is he hurt? Is he really going to miss a bunch of time? He'll be out there probably Tuesday doing some work in team period. Maybe not 100% in terms of participation, but he's been progressing. He's looked fine. Team's just going to be very cautious with him so nothing lingers. Saw that happen with Joe Burrow last year. Calf injury they pushed and really impacted him the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season. So team being smart as they should. Justin Fields, it's been, to me, really the story of his time in Chicago. Ups and downs. Vertically, the arm strength, the speed has all looked really good. Some great throws downfield, 1 and 7 on 7 to Van Jefferson for 46 yards, a post route to George Pickens for 51 yards, some slot fades to Pat Frymouth. You've seen some high-level throws, the velocity, the zip. I think he has gone through his progressions well in 7 shots on Sunday. He wanted Roman Wilson in the flat for his first read, wasn't there, came back to the middle and found Scotty Miller for a touchdown. He ran 7 shots effectively on Sunday, so that has been positive overall, but we've seen that variance and him missing some routine type stuff in the flats. There was one to Calvin Austin, there was a crosser that was thrown behind, some other misses, one to Frymouth in the end zone, 7 shots on Saturday, there was a touch too high, should have been a lower ball for him, maybe catchable, but one that Fields could have placed better. Maybe some reads and RPOs where he threw in the flat where he probably shouldn't have. A little tough to tell from my angle, but those types of things. And then in Sunday's practice, kind of fading as things went on through the first pick of training camp. A bad ball to Scotty Miller that Dante Jackson easily picked off. Followed that up with a near interception. Should have been picked by Kalen Barnes, who jumped across her. There was a screen pass to Jaylen Warren under some pressure that was high and over his head. Warren made a great one-handed catch, and so you're just kind of getting some stacking of bad plays, some of the up-down play and variance of Fields' game, which is the story of how things were in Chicago. So we'll keep watching, of course. They are going to definitely carve out a short yardage package for him. Saw some of that in 7 shots, a designed quarterback run. Read options been utilized a couple of times during team periods, so that's something Pittsburgh can certainly work with given Fields' mobility, but you're still seeing that inconsistency, and that's been the issue throughout his career. Kyle Allen working second string with Wilson out has been, I think, impressive overall, keeping things more short to medium, not really any deep shots overall, but I think he's shown good touch and layered the ball well, been smart, been efficient, so happy with him, and Pittsburgh will value his experience as this team's third-string quarterback once the season gets underway. And then John Rice Plumlee, it's not been terribly notable, but he's getting a lot of reps, and that's good. You're thinking 4th-string quarterback with all these new quarterbacks in here that need some time, need the reps. How is Plumlee going to get even an opportunity, a shot? But because Wilson has been sidelined, Plumlee has gotten work. Now, there's been issues just trying to push the ball downfield, being accurate, some exchange type stuff there. He's also worked as a returner, which he was doing, I think, late in the spring. There were reports of him doing that, working as a punt returner, kick returner. He's done both, trying to maximize his value and versatility in any way possible. It's been, as you would expect from somebody who primarily played quarterback in college, he's muffed several, and one literally just hit him in the helmet one day, and then he just didn't even come close to catching it. So it has very much been a work in progress, but that's what training camp is for. He's a really good athlete, was a baseball player in college throughout his career. He played wide receiver at Ole Miss for a season, so then moved back to quarterback when he transferred to UCF. So there's an athletic background. It's not Big Ben trying to return kicks and punts. I mean, there's a method and some plausibility to it, but it's been a lot of struggles overall for Plumlee. He's had a couple of passes batted down at the line. He's a shorter quarterback. In Field, to go back to Justin Fields for a second, has had 4 passes batted down. I don't know if that's just because linemen are getting their hands up more because they can't actually really rush and sack the quarterback, but that's also been one thing with Fields to note. So Plumlee getting reps, but it has been bumpy. Running back is tough to note because, they're not in pads, and yeah, they look good when they run, and Jaylen Warren finishes every rep still to the end zone, but they can't be tackled. So it's just hard to evaluate. You got Harris, you got Warren, both have been fine. My takeaway really when it comes to running back is Pittsburgh's going to run a bunch of running back screens with Arthur Smith, and hopefully more successful than years past, which have been miserable. They've not been really a good screen team since Le'Veon Bell in his prime, but a younger, more athletic offensive line should have, you would hope, better results overall, but they run screens multiple times in practice, true, running back middle screen. So that should be something we'll see. A lot of receptions for Jaylen Warren, who had 61 last year, and probably more receptions for Najee Harris, who lost his third down role to Warren, but probably make up some receptions on first and second downs. That's kind of my takeaway. Cordell Patterson's on NFI. He's still probably going to be a little ways away from that hamstring injury. Haven't seen him make a ton of progress. He's doing light work on the side. Hopefully he gets back for the end of training camp. I can't even guarantee that right now. And then after that, it's kind of been a mess of names. Michael Pirine, Jonathan Ward, Aaron Shamklin, Dejon Edwards, and it's been just kind of a pretty even rotation. I might give Pirine the edge in terms of pecking order, but they really split things fairly evenly, and I don't have a lot of commentary on their play. I think there's some interesting names. There is some talent. These guys will certainly get a lot of burn in preseason action. That's how these guys will make the practice squad and kind of jockey for position. So we'll see what they can do there and can do on special teams. Guys like Ward and Edwards have a pretty good background there covering kicks and punts. So we'll see if they get an opportunity to make their case for Danny Smith to stick around in some capacity. Also should mention fullback Jack Colletto has played a fair amount, caught a couple of passes. So they have, really truly used the fullback. And it's not just been him. It's been some of Connor Hayward. Been some of Darnell Washington, Michael Pruitt, the other tight ends. So speaking of tight ends, they've been active, they've been involved, they've been on the field in 12 personnel, 13 personnel. It's been very much the Arthur Smith experience offensively in terms of the groupings and just how the offense looks and feels and functions. Pat Frymuth has been a favorite target so far, especially the first 2 days. He's gotten 8 targets through 4 practices, 7 coming the first 2 days. And so he's been somebody that Justin Fields has looked for quite a bit. Had a good camp overall. He should, probably get his contract extension this summer before week 1 begins, which is more incentive to feed him the football. And if Pittsburgh does not make a move for a number 2 wide receiver, then Frymuth should finish second on the team in targets and receptions and yards. So nice start for him. Been quiet for Darnell Washington. A bit more activity on Sunday, but it came in 7-on-7, but there were a couple of receptions. He has not been targeted in team period, let alone caught a pass. I thought there would be a little more movement and involvement in the passing game there with how heavily the tight ends have been targeted. Hayward's gotten his catches, and Pruitt, and even Rodney Williams before he had an AC joint injury in his shoulder. That will likely keep him out for a couple more days, but Washington, a lot of blocking, and on Sunday he was really on the side with Alfredo Roberts, the tight ends coach, and even with Broderick Jones after practice working on his pass sets, like a tackle on his kick slide. So I wonder if they're going to really focus in on Washington as a blocker, off of play action, then more straight drop back play actions instead of the rollouts, where Washington may have to really be asked to block quite a bit. So that might be the ticket with him, and of course with the size and style, he's going to be a blocker first. Offensive line, again, it's tough to evaluate overall. Troy Fautanu has primarily run second-team right tackle. He's gotten some first-team right tackle reps, but until we get pads and some of the 1v1 settings, it's going to be tough to evaluate overall. But generally, Dan Moore Jr. is still working first-team left tackle. Broderick Jones, first-team right tackle. So it's really been status quo for the offensive line. Nate Herbig at center. Herbig's had a nice camp. Again, it's early and evaluation's tricky, but the snaps have been solid, and he has run ahead of Zach Frazier every step of the way. Now, could that change? Absolutely. I still would expect it to as of right now, but I don't want to completely count out Nate Herbig either. He's off to a good start. Beyond that, commentary's been tough. It's been really the takeaway I have is a lot of the sloppiness, a lot of false starts. Sunday was just horrendous for these young linemen, Faratanu included. There were so many false starts. Faratanu had one. Tyler Beach had one in warm-ups. Mason McCormick had one on Sunday and then one either on Friday or Saturday. Anderson Hardy, Joey Fisher, Ryan McCollum had a bad exchange with Justin Fields under center, and they all have to do laps. When you commit some sort of infraction or some sort of unforced error like McCollum, you're doing a lap around the field as dictated by Arthur Smith. So, it's got to get cleaned up there. Luckily, it's been some of the backups and the vets have been, fine. Say Malu's been fine. Daniels has been fine. Dan Moore has been fine from a pre-snap infraction standpoint. So, but that's kind of my takeaway, some of that sloppiness there for those young guys. And of course, wide receiver, George Pickens has had his moment. It's not been an amazing camp so far, but he's been fine overall. Still very much, trying to figure out this number 2 receiver role. There's not been any really headway made on that. Calvin Austin has made some plays. I mean, the way the camp opened was the top 3 were Pickens, Austin, and Van Jefferson. Seen Roman Wilson working more, and after a quiet first day, he's ascended, had a really good Saturday practice, a great leaping catch on a slot fade from Justin Fields over the rookie corner, Beanie Bishop. He's caught a couple of touchdowns, Wilson has, or at least one so far. So he's made more noise, but there's going to be more work to be done in this padless environment. The advantage typically goes to the offense and to the wide receivers. Jefferson, I thought his looked, pretty good overall. Did not see him during Sunday's practice. Not sure what's going on there. Mike Tomlin did not note it, but I'll watch for that on Tuesday. Calvin Austin has also, made a couple plays as well, but still struggling to catch the ball outside his frame when he's got to go up for the ball or kind of reach outside of his body for it, and that's been his issue. I know he's a small guy, but you got to make catches outside your frame and help out your quarterback, so want to monitor that going forward. Behind them, Quez Watkins has made some plays on Sunday. Callaway, a little bit of noise, but again, not seeing a ton of separation. Scotty Miller been in the mix as well. He got more increased reps on Sunday, but they were just it's going to take time to figure this thing out, and I think it's certainly still plausible this team will add from the outside. Defensively, D-line, my biggest note here is to Marvin Leal. Got some of that spring buzz from the coaching staff and some of the reporters that he looked a lot better. The light was coming on for him. So far, that's been evident based off his summer play, his quickness, explosiveness, hand use, getting his hand up in throwing lanes, just making plays in the backfield, getting pressure. It's been impressive so far, chasing after the football, finishing. He's a really good athlete, always been that way coming out of Texas A&M. So got to continue, got to be able to translate in the pads, obviously, but I like what he's done so far. If he can become something what he was supposed to be as a former third-round pick, that would be huge for this team and for short-term and long-term rotational depth and maybe something more, but encouraging start, but a start all the same. Beyond that, not a ton to note. Benton's looked fine, but I don't have a lot of notes on him. Logan Lee has made some plays, got his hand up in throwing lanes. He's getting a decent amount of reps overall, but the evaluation will really start this week, starting on Tuesday with this group. Outside linebacker, I think Jeremiah Moon has caught my attention some. He showed a really nice spin move on Pruitt in Sunday's practice, and so we'll see if that's part of his arsenal. The pass rush aspect he's got to work on. That's been really, raw and unrefined. He's a big guy. He's strong. I think he can play the run. He can play on special teams, but can he really develop as a pass rusher? That's going to be critical for him. I think Kyron Johnson has been really impressive. One of the better overall players in camp so far during the team period, running third string outside linebacker, setting the edge against the run, winning off the line with a quick first step. He's beating third string right tackles, guys like Anderson Hardy. So I know it's not, he's not beating Broderick Jones right now, but you can just, you have to play who you're matched up against. And I think he's shown to do a pretty good job so far. So at least practice squad material looking likely for him, but maybe he'll push Jeremiah Moon for a spot on the 53-man roster. Inside linebacker has been impressive. Patrick Queen has been really good. I think it's just kind of assumed and not talked about often about his play, but he's been so quick to the flats in terms of taking away checkdowns and some of these RPOs. I've seen him be able to close so quickly on Pat Fryermuth, on Jalen Warren, and really limit any yak. Not able to tackle, but if he was able to, these guys would have gone to the ground pretty hard. So he's been fun to watch, fly around sideline to sideline, defensive communication. I think it's been pretty clean overall. Of course, Peyton Wilson has been gaining a ton of buzz here, and rightfully so. He's looked good. He's looked explosive, smart, available, hard worker, always the first guy down on the field. Getting some work with the first team inside linebackers next to Patrick Queen, getting some dime linebacker work where he's a true, only off-ball linebacker in some of those dime 6TB packages. So happy with his play overall. Beyond that, it's just been a good group. We'll see if Cole Holcomb can get back during training camp. Don't have any update on him. Tyler Medikevich and Mark Robinson also fighting for spots. To me, at cornerback, the biggest standout has been Dante Jackson. Now, Joey Porter Jr. is still very much this team's #1 corner, and he's been fine. He had a good breakup on Saturday against Van Jefferson, but Jackson has been super competitive against George Pickens. He's got multiple breakups on Pickens, on others as well, on Calvin Austin in one play and 7 shots. He's got the only interception, the one I mentioned earlier on Sunday against Justin Fields. He's been active against the run. He's just been really solid in a short-term memory. There was one play where he did get beat by Van Jefferson in 7-on-7, and then came back the next rep and drove on a slant intended for Marquez Callaway and broke it up. And so corners are going to get beat. He's going to be beat. He's not an elite, top-tier corner, but he is putting plays behind him and making the next one out there, which is all you can do, all you can ask for these guys. So nice to have that veteran corner out there. I've been impressed with his work so far. If he can just be at least, a non-liability, then Pittsburgh should be good, but hopefully he can be a little bit more than that. I've been encouraged so far, but it is, again, 4 days in, and there's still going to be a long ways to go. Slot corner battle has really been owned by Beanie Bishop Jr. It's not been cemented. His name's not been written and penned to have that job, but there's really not been a first-team rotation. They have run different people, and safety Deshaun Elliott has gotten work there, more so in the first probably 2 days of camp, and then it kind of felt like Bishop has been really almost the exclusive first-team slot corner. You got guys like Grayland Arnold and Josiah Scott running behind, but Bishop has been aggressive and feisty and with a really good demeanor. Cam Sutton has helped him out a lot. You see those guys on the field before practice. Sutton's going over different, teach points and just tips and tricks for a young guy like Bishop. So I'm sure that has been very helpful. So Bishop, is in that position. Will he definitely win that job? No, we'll have to see. But I'm excited to see him going forward, and I think the team feels the same way. Sutton has not gotten a ton of reps. I don't know if that's because of the suspension or because they just know him so well and they want to give, reps to young guys and lesser-known guys like Scott and Grayland Arnold and, of course, Bishop. But Sutton has kind of worked in some of the dime packages, but I have not seen a ton from Cam Sutton just from a rep standpoint. But he'll be on the reserve suspended list to begin the season. 2 more quick notes at corner. Darius Rush has come on strong, especially in the weekend practices with a couple breakups there. So he's gotten a ton of second-team corner work. He has a leg up on Corey Trice Jr. right now, the second-year man, coming off the torn ACL his rookie year. He's healthy, no knee brace. Maybe the team's being cautious with his reps. That's not my interpretation or kind of feel or read of the situation. He has been running some third team, but even more recently, the last 2 days, losing some reps and splitting some reps with Thomas Graham Jr. on the outside. Some of Anthony Averett's snaps have come at the expense of Corey Trice Jr., who has been nondescript, not bad, not really targeted, but I don't have a whole lot to say about him other than to say the reps have been difficult to come by. Maybe getting, 10 reps in a team period per practice, which is not a ton, and it might be even being a little bit generous with that figure. So we'll keep watching, but it has been just tough to get those opportunities so far for Trice. Guys like Darius Rush and Kalen Barnes have gotten far more chances and reps than what Trice has received. Finally, at safety, the group's pretty set in stone. There are a lot of veteran names, Minka and Casey and Killebrew. Do have Elliott in the mix, and he's been fine. He's been blitzing some and, generating pressure. He's been getting that slot work, like I mentioned earlier, as well. He'll be a guy that can hit and probably show up more once the pads come on and the contact is live. Ryan Watts, the rookie from Texas who played corner, switching to safety. He's played a lot of dime backer. He's been able to blitz some. Don't have a whole lot of individual play notes from him, but it's been good to see him sort of bounce around and wear different hats and work in some sub packages, and that, dime linebacker next to a Patrick Queen or a Peyton Wilson, kind of interesting given that Watts is, a really big corner, good size for a safety, incredibly long and really physical. That's a guy that at his ceiling could potentially play that kind of 6 DB role. Don't think it's going to come out of the gate. Someone like Casey, Sutton potentially, if he were, or later in the season whenever he's off the suspended list, they're far more likely, but Watts down the road, that could be ideally the role that he settles into. And then finally, quick note on the specialists and special teams. Cameron Johnson, the punter, has looked good. They punted, kind of live reps, at least for our training camp setting. There's no actual rush, but some actual punts from Johnston. It's been good overall. Not amazing, but good, and the hang times have been consistent, and he's overall just been a consistent leg. I think one shank out of the 20 or so punts that he's booted so far, and so we'll take that after the inconsistency and just roller coaster that was the Presley Harvin experience. Chris Boswell struggled on field goals on Saturday, missed a couple, uncharacteristic for him, but I'm not concerned overall, to be honest with you guys. Still sorting out the gunner battle. There's a bunch of names there. It's hard to really even pick out who's a front runner right now. I counted the one day like 18 different guys getting work there, so it's just truly wide open, and inside stadium work's going to really determine that more so than some practices, which really focus more on technique and, just those types of things, that it's going to be about actual evaluation of the quality of that play in terms of making tackles and getting the job done. Long snapper, Logan Lee could be the backup long snapper. I saw him get 1 rep in a field goal drill. Just to note that Christian Kuntz, of course, your starter, but if Lee makes the team, which is certainly far from a given, but that's just a nugget to keep stashed away. Know who your backup snapper is. Cole Holcomb, if he's on the roster, he's done some snapping as well. In the past, not this year, he's been on active PUP, but Logan Lee snapped it in high school, and so there's a background there. Just want to make a note of that. And again, return work. I think we'll see Jalen Warren do some kick return stuff, especially with Patterson, who, if he's not able to play in the preseason or at least some preseason action, probably see him. Could see Plumlee. Roman Wilson may get a look there. Punts, it could be variety guys. Calvin Austin, of course, your starter right now. Scotty Miller, Quez Watkins. Those guys could be in the mix for some punt return work. So those are my thoughts, position group by position group, for the first 4 practices of the Pittsburgh Steelers 2024 training camp. Not going to put grades on things, not going to declare winners or losers. We're 4 days in. These are not hot takes, and these things are all subject to change. I'm just giving you my observations in a vacuum of what has happened the first 4 days of camp. For those who aren't there, I want to paint that picture for you guys. You can also check out our daily training camp reports, which usually come in around 4,000 words, probably even more once they go into longer practices starting Tuesday, when they go into backs on backers and receiver DB one-on-one and O-line D-line one-on-one, and some really fun stuff there. So the reports should get more in-depth and more thorough as we go along. So hopefully that provides an update as a good starting point as we get into a really important week for this team. They'll practice, 6 straight days, I think it would be, or 5 straight days, whatever it is, Tuesday through Sunday. And that's going to be the longest stretch of training camp for them. And for us, they'll have the Friday Night Lights practice this upcoming Friday. That'll be a great time as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate you guys listening. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.